Hello, I'd like to welcome everyone to the Power of Our Story. We are a place of safety and connection for those who protect us. We do this through stories, sharing stories in a healing and judgment-free zone. And we have about 4 groups that meet weekly. So if you are a protector or a caring bridge builder, you are welcome to come join us. We would love to have you. So today, we welcome Michael Halterman, otherwise known as Halty. He is a retired United States Marine Corps Forces Special Operations Command, quite a mouthful there, otherwise known as MARSOC. And presently, he is the Vice President of Operations for the Honor Foundation. And if I can just give a little personal comment here, I cannot say enough about the Honor Foundation. The coaches, being a coach there myself, the collaborative spirit of the coaches, the tireless effort of the staff, the excellence and the leaders brought in to educate and really help our protectors transition is just remarkable. So it's an honor for me to have and to welcome Michael Halterman, again known as Halty. So Halty, welcome.
Sara, thank you so much for this opportunity. I genuinely appreciate it. And to all of my new friends who I just met who are on this call with me, this is an auspicious group. There's a lot of good doers. And it is not lost on me to get to tell my story in a group of people that like this. So just thank you to all of you. So who is this guy named Halty? Well, let's talk about it. I was born and raised on the Central Coast of California, small town, and I knew I wanted to get out of that small town. So not too long after my time in high school, I joined the Marine Corps. Had a couple of buddies that did that and they were having fun. So I wanted to go join them on adventure and have fun with them. And I joined as an infantryman right away. And I found all of that adventure I was looking for. Granted, this is 1998, which is kind of funny to think about. So pre 9/11, the world is very different back then. And so I got to deploy to a lot of places that guys and gals currently don't get to go to. So I got to see Greece, I got to see Panama, and I got to enjoy for the first time new cultures, new languages, and being really immersed in uncomfortable situations, but all of it a great learning experience. Roundabout August, fast forwarding to August 2001, I was on what we called a med cruise back then. So I was on the USS Kearsarge, and they dropped us off in a pretty beautiful place. I'm not even joking about this. Beautiful rolling hills of Kosovo, although Kosovo had a lot going on at the time. So roundabout August of 2001, I was in the hills of Kosovo doing patrols. And around about September 11th, 2001, I was on patrol, and over this giant radio that's about this big and about this tall and weighs like, I don't know, too many pounds, we get this crackling message to our patrol: return to base, America's been attacked. Now, it does not come through that clear, especially in radios back then. It's crackling and hissing and all these things. And I heard the return to base, but I was like, America's been attacked. You guys are messing with me. There's no way. So we returned to base, and sure enough, we walk into the Army DFAC, right, dining facility, and we see on those big old screen TVs, you know, the ones that used to be encased in wood and stood on the ground. You couldn't attach them to the walls back then. You could have heard a pin drop in the DFAC, which is usually just raucous noise and people having fun, but you could have heard a pin drop because we were watching on repeat the falling of the towers. I bring that up because everybody from certain generations know exactly where they were on that day, and I like to say where I was that day and how our lives changed ever after. Going forward in 2003, I found myself in part of the invasion force going into Iraq. And I can tell you, it was a hoot. It was a really good time. Yes, it's war. Yes, it is scary. Yes, it is all of those things. But man, it's a really good time. You're doing some really dangerous, fun things with your best friends. And so after spending about a month in southern Al Nasiriyah, which is a third major city in Iraq. I learned a lot. It was my first combat experience. And one of my key takeaways was nobody knew what they were actually doing. We'd all read the books and we'd all done the training together, but none of us had actually done it. So there we were in our green camouflage, wearing gas masks and all these other things in the desert. So it was pretty funny at times. So after about a month of that and seeing my first combat, being in my first firefights, about a month into it, I find myself on a rooftop doing fire watch. So making sure everybody else can get some sleep. You're up for an hour, making sure everybody's safe, watching out for bad guys, right? The whole bit. And over the top of me, I start hearing this whirring sound, and it's not going anywhere. And it's just kind of feels like it's sitting over the top of me. And then helicopters, and then explosions, and then a gunfight breaks out in the middle of the night. Now, I'd seen a lot of things to this point, but I hadn't seen this. And when I would realize what I got to watch after some time and some research was I was watching my first special operations fold more or less right in front of me. And I got to watch all of it happen. I got to watch the C-130 park into orbit. I got to watch little black helicopters come in and drop off the assault force. And I got to watch the whole thing go down. And I thought, I've really enjoyed being a Marine up until this point. I really enjoy being an infantryman. I really have enjoyed my first combat experience, but whatever that was, I've got to go be a part of that. I don't know what that was, but that's the coolest thing I've ever seen. I've got to go do that. And so it just put me on a totally different path. And so if you can imagine being, even if you're a civilian in a company and saying, I like this company, but I want to go to that company. Can you imagine how popular I was when I said that? Yeah, I did not win any popularity contests, and I got told repeatedly, you're not going anywhere. In fact, go get back in formation, kid. And definitely not said to me that nicely by any means. And so I'm stubborn, and I don't give up. And so I started doing research. And if you'll remember, back in 2003, Google wasn't invented yet. So trying to figure out what it was I saw, and a public facing SOCOM page on the internet was just almost impossible to find. But I started putting these little threads together. Navy SEALs are real. It's not just a movie. Green Berets are real. Because, right, I'm a child of the 80s. I've watched all these movies with these references, but I didn't actually know. And now I'm finding out they really exist. And I thought, I have to go do that. Whatever that is, I've got to do it. So it put me in a different mind state. I start training very differently. I start carrying a ruck a whole lot more. I start putting on fins and going for a lot longer swims because I'm actually not that good in the water. And I knew I had to be. And so I started training very differently. And I found myself a thread, by the way, through all my stories is I'm not actually good at much. I'm just good at being lucky, quite honestly, and surrounding myself with better people. And so I just got lucky. I found myself at the right place at the right time, exactly when MARSOC stood up on the West Coast, where I happened to be at the time on orders, and they were looking for bodies. And I was a warm body, and I was really good at that time about carrying heavy things uphill and not stopping until I was told to be stopped. So I was good at that. And somehow I slid under the door, and they allowed me into MARSOC. And that would be the next 10 years. So the whole first 10 years was the infantry portion I told you about. And the next 10 years would be spent in MARSOC and special operations. And so because I'm lucky, I got to be in one of the first teams deploying, in one of the first operational teams deploying to Afghanistan. And that would turn into a back-to-back rotations going to Afghanistan. I've got about a year and a half of my life in southern and southeastern Afghanistan over various deployments. And it was fantastic. It was some of the funnest things I've ever done. Everything from off-roading in trucks with your best friends with guns to landing in black helicopters in the middle of the night and doing those things that I saw the years previously when I said, I'm going to go do that, actually getting to go do that. And the absolute satisfaction you get from seeing through the accomplishment of a really hard goal. So I got to do a lot of those things. And then as my career progressed, I worked my way out of the fun jobs. And then I found myself working out of an embassy, it was pretty cool. It was a good time. I got to spend a bunch of time in the Southern Philippines and working out of the embassy there, and met amazing people across different spectrums of law enforcement and some of the agencies that we talked about pre this call. And And that really developed an overall broader mindset and thinking about how to look at what was going on globally from a security standpoint, and from, you know, what American values are, and different things like that. And as I come to the end of that 20-year career, I started watching my peers and mentors, watching them kind of go through the transition space. And I thought, man, this looks really difficult. So I started asking questions like, what are you doing? What are good resources and all these things? And this one thing kept coming up. It was called the Honor Foundation. It's like, okay, I need to add that to my checklist. And so I tried to do the best I could to kind of start 2 years out on my transition personally, because I figured 20 years of Marine Corps time with 2 years to really focus on me, finish off my job in the Marine Corps, and successfully go into something else was the right way to do it. And right around like a couple of months before I'm getting ready to retire, I finally get my spot at the Honor Foundation. So I'm a fellow who went through the program, and I'm an alumni of the course, Group 15 in San Diego, in fact. And what happened was, what I experienced, although I had done all these other things for about 18 months with other amazing organizations filled with great Americans who genuinely care and offered really wonderful things and tools to me, what I realized was, although I was ready for change, I was not dealing with transition. Transition is actually totally different. Change is easy. Change is the tactical things. It's the contextual, in the moment. I need to change my job. I'm going to change how much I make. I'm going to change where I work. I might change where I live, and so on and so on and so on. But transition is how you deal with it in your heart and in your mind, and how you think about and deal with those changes in a healthy way, or maybe unhealthy. It's still transition. So what I learned very quickly when I showed up at the Honor Foundation, night one was the most uncomfortable by far. There I am in my suit, oversized, didn't know how to wear it. I didn't have any business cards. I didn't know how to talk about myself, personal pitch, and all these other things. So the director, night one, says, okay, check it out, gentlemen, ladies, we're going to go around the room and introduce ourselves. But here's the catch. You can't use anything about your military experience. I don't know. I don't want to know what you did. I want to know who you are. Ready, set, go. We all just rocked backwards in our chairs, and we're like, wait a second, are you kidding me? I've been Master Sergeant Halterman for 20 years. I'm a Marine, I'm a sniper, I'm a free faller, I'm a this and I'm that. It's like, no, those are things you did. It's not who you are. Who is Michael? Who is Halty? What is he like? Just because you've been told you've got to eat spaghetti, do you even like spaghetti? Just because that's what they're serving at the chow hall? It's time to have an opinion. It's time to remember who you are and start to grapple with who are you becoming. And that was a month long, really grappling with that. And that's phase one at the Honor Foundation. And then as you're starting to grapple with those things and really starting to think about who am I and who am I becoming, and getting comfortable with it, then going into month two, phase two, it becomes much easier to start writing resumes, filling out your LinkedIn, and really starting to talk about yourself in a much deeper, more meaningful way. I'm not special operator so-and-so. I'm want to be new business person going into industry X. Let's have that conversation. It's more forward leaning. It's more forward looking. So I got to do that. And then phase three is another entire month. So the entirety of the Honor Foundation is 3 months. And phase three is all about exposing you to opportunity. So while you were doing all of that hard work, you may not have really thought about looking at manufacturing. You may not have thought about looking into some of the other areas of tech. You may not have thought about looking into any number of, real estate, banking, finance. What's the difference between venture capital and big banking, and in answering all those questions. So phase three is all about exposing the fellows to opportunities and what are the full capabilities of things out there that you could possibly get into. And so I got to do all of that. And by the end, I knew exactly what I was doing. I built my pitch. My LinkedIn was reorganized. I had business cards. I finally knew how to wear that suit. It wasn't too big anymore. I was going to be an entrepreneur. I was going into tech, and I was going to learn how to, I was going to teach myself on the job battery technology and solar cells so that I could leverage that to do my own thing. And I did none of that. What ended up happening instead was I was offered the opportunity to stay on at the Honor Foundation, because what they saw was somebody who really believed in the curriculum and felt really comfortable with technology. And they needed somebody to figure out how to do exactly what we're all doing together right now, which is how do we do a virtual classroom so that we can get to everybody that we're not getting to with the physical campuses. So in 2018, I retire. I go through the Honor Foundation in 2019, January 2, I'm a brand new employee. And I got hired on as the director of the virtual campus, the very first one. And so I helped scale the company through virtual. And then we all know what happened in 2020. How fortuitous. So THF pivoted without skipping a beat. And we all just went to virtual because I proved the concept that it is possible. And we actually served more people in 2020 than we had in 2019 or 2018 combined, I think. Might be a little off on that, but gosh darn, it was close. And ever since then, we've just been on an upward trajectory. Not so much for me, but mostly because I'm lucky and I surround myself with great teammates, and I have amazing teammates. From there, I was offered the opportunity to be the vice president of operations. And now I'm doing the really cool stuff everybody loves: IT, HR, payroll. Yeah, the cool stuff. And I'm grappling with all that, but genuinely, I enjoy it. And here's why. Sara already alluded to it. The staff works extremely hard, and they're so busy pouring themselves out all day, every day for everyone else. I get to be the teammate. And now my other teammate in operations with me, Mindy Hill, shout out to Mindy Hill. She's an amazing human. We get to worry about the team. We get to check in on them because they're so busy pouring themselves out to all the fellows and all the alumni. We're making sure that they have what they need to do that and do it successfully every day, day in, day out, mostly 7 days a week, because they're hardworking non-profiteers. And so it's very, it's humbling, and it's very enriching to be able to serve a team who deserves only the best. So that's a little bit about me. That's where I'm at currently in my current adventure at THF. And that's my story.
Excellent. Thank you so much. It's nice to kind of see that full big picture of where you came from, and then just, hear more about the Honor Foundation. So I'm just curious if, we're talking about transition, it's really interesting to hear you say that it really is mental. There's all the logistics, and can you talk a little bit more about the mental part? Like what can usually come up in your mind that many people may not talk about in the transition time?
Yeah, great question. So it's a minor life crisis, especially the longer you've been in. If you've served a decade, 2 decades, 3 decades, that's all you've known. If you joined when you were 17 and a half or even 20, and now you've spent multiple decades in a very, in many ways, controlled environment, you probably haven't dealt with even the reasons you came into the military, because the military keeps you busy. So there's quite often, there's a lot of residue from childhood that comes out. There's a lot of things that start to bubble to the surface, because now you're compounding financial worries, you're compounding loss of identity, you're compounding that with loss of community, you're compounding that with loss of purpose. And now the sense-making capability you have of your world is coming apart, and it's really hard to be able to look through all of that and find meaning in life. And we ground in those things, right? So all of those things, plus whatever those individual service members went through during their time in service. So it stacks up very heavily right towards the end, and it can be a lot to grapple with.
And what is your advice when those things bubble up and they're going through kind of this wonderful fire hose of the Honor Foundation, this, great opportunity. But if they've already maybe transitioned or they're about to, and all these things start bubbling up, what is your advice to them to, stay grounded?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm going to slow down here for a moment because this answer really matters. You have to, you can't do it alone. Right. And we watch, special operators, especially, they get in a mindset of, I was successful in my career, and they own it. And they think that I have to transition by myself and own my transition. And I always say, guys, gals, you are who you are because you were surrounded by great teammates, and you need to find new teammates, a new tribe now. And you need to find the people who tell you, hey, you're going too fast, slow down. Hey, don't go left, go right. Hey, do this, don't do that. Because that's how you were able to be so capable in your career. That's what kept getting you to the next level. Mentorship, really good colleagues. So you got to find your new tribe. You can't do this alone. You're probably going to need to find an ecology of things. There's no one silver bullet. Everyone's dealing with something different. And so some of you, especially if you're still in, it is time and overdue that you go see the battalion psychologist. It is time. It is way past due. I did 2 years before I got out, and it was way past due. Things were bubbling to the surface that I didn't even know were there. And you're missing out on support. If you would go see the physical therapist, if you got a gym injury, why wouldn't you go see the psychologist if you're grappling with all these things mentally? So don't do it alone. Find your tribe. Realize that you're not the first one that has had to do this. Other people have done this. So go find the people that have already done this and done it well. Have conversations with them. And when I say conversations, this is the most important part of a conversation. Be vulnerable. Talk about what is really on your mind. It's totally fine to do the surface level stuff. Hey, how you been? How's the gym going? What's your nutrition look like? But then get down to brass tacks. Here's where I'm struggling. Here's what I have no idea about. Have you done this before? Can you help me? Can you help me? And be curious. The last thing I'll end this with is be curious, like a child. Curiosity is our superpower we're born with. I mean, literally the moment we're born with our superpower. And over time, and through all of the different structures, it's stripped away from us. And we forget how to do it. And you can become calloused in some ways, and it's easier to be sarcastic and keep everybody at a one arm's distance than it is to be curious and lean into the discomfort. So be curious, lean into your discomfort, wonder about it, work through it, and don't do it alone.
And I'm hearing you say too, go get that time with a therapist.
Yes.
Get that time, work through that stuff.
Yes.
Preferably before you transition.
Yes.
Okay, that is great. So let me ask you something that really seems like it hits the mark, from my angle too, looking in. From your experience and what you've seen other fellows go through, what do you feel like has been the most valuable part or something that they should really focus in on while they have this opportunity at the Honor Foundation?
Again, use your superpower. Be curious about all of it. We're going to ask you to do really uncomfortable things. We're going to ask you to talk about your feelings. You're coming to us for, you think, a resume and LinkedIn and a network. And we're going to ask you to think about yourself and really dig into who you are again. So really be curious with the time you're spending with us. And the results are obvious for the fellows who lean in. We have 2,200 and growing alumni now. And of those, the ones who are overwhelmingly excelling and finding success by however they measure it are the ones who are the most curious, asking for help and leaning into the discomfort.
Wonderful. Great input. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for the responses. I'd like to go ahead and open it up to others to ask questions or make a comment. Paul, what's on your mind?
Oh, I'm pretty sure you don't have that much time.
Short version.
Yeah. Okay. My question is this. I heard you ask about who you are.
Mm.
And that's incredibly important because that's much deeper than the color of your uniform or the badge that you wear or whatever tchotchkes you own that you can, identify yourself with.
Yes, sir.
But one of the things that comes to mind is in the honor program, and I know nothing about it other than what I've heard today. Do you ever ask your people what their why is?
Thank you for asking me that question. Yeah.
Well, that's going really deep.
Yes, sir.
And we all talk about having hope, but having faith goes really deep. And so it's important to know who you are, certainly. It's also important to know your why.
Yes, sir.
And I share that for whatever it's worth. If you're not doing it, you might look into it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm happy to cheerlead you, if nothing else. But anyway, that's the extent of my comment, and I just thought I would share that. Otherwise, it's a wonderful presentation. It's relaxed, it's calm, and it's inviting, and I appreciate that very much.
Thank you very much, Paul, and I appreciate bringing that up. And to talk about the Honor Foundation would take an hour by itself because of the amount of layered support we have over the 3 months. So I'm barely scratching the surface, but I love that you asked me that question. And to be direct, yes, we do force the fellows to go through a very uncomfortable process in phase 1, the most uncomfortable process, the crawl phase before the walk and the run. And we use Simon Sinek's Start With Why because it's highly effective, and it works regardless of your belief systems. It works regardless of how you may have already structured your views of the world. So we use Simon Sinek's Start With Why, and success as measured by the staff is if every guy and gal, every fellow can leave phase 1 with a why, or at least by graduation, and letting it bake over time with a working why, right? It may not be completely fine tuned, but to have a why, right? Because Dr. Frankel said anyone, a human can withstand almost any how if they know their why. And Man's Search for Meaning is just such a seminal read for anyone if you haven't heard of it. And I'll say, I know my why. I solve the problems of tomorrow so that others can bridge to the future. And that's what I choose to put on my LinkedIn as opposed to my titles or anything else, because that's genuinely what I'm trying to pursue every day. It's never about me. It's always about others. Yeah. Thank you for that great question.
Great answer. Thank you. Thank you, Paul. And Janet.
Thanks so much for sharing here. I loved what you brought up about change and tradition or transition are two very different things. A lot of people don't realize that. And where was all this information that even like Paul about your why, and that in 2002 is when I was diagnosed with PTSD. There was absolutely nothing. For a police dispatcher, they didn't even acknowledge a police officer getting PTSD, never mind a dispatcher. And I was off work for another injury, a motor vehicle accident. So I thought everything happened and was that. But the thing that I found was, after working with my psychologist, and I agree 100% with you, everybody needs to see one. But there has to be a cutoff point. They have to want to get better. And that if you continue to see that psychologist, I know someone that's been the same one for 30 years, that's the wrong psychologist. You want to move forward.
Mhm.
And when mine said, you don't have to work with me anymore, I said, oh my God, now what? Because there is nothing, and you guys are filling that gap. There was nothing after. And if you can't keep moving forward, you fall back, because
Mhm.
that's the known.
Mhm.
So you're changing lives, and Sarah's changing lives here, but I call myself a now what coach, because like you said, who are you when you're doing what you're doing? Like if you were, for me, I was a police dispatcher, I dealt with emergencies, and then I was a grandma, and that who am I when I'm doing those things? And when somebody's transitioning, besides the why, I want to know why you got into the career you did. What was the feeling you wanted? Not the reason you went in, but what was the feeling you were looking for? And I think that's really important, because we forget what that was when we were a child. Oh, I want to do this, but we don't remember the feeling that we wanted. So that's my thank you so much for sharing with us today.
Thank you. I would offer, if anybody else, if it resonates with them, the idea of the difference between change and transition. I learned that framework from William Bridges' book, Transitions. And I think it's like 40th anniversary edition at this point. It's just, if this space is interesting to you at all, in that framework, which I'm butchering, I'm not doing it nearly a good enough service, but if it's interesting to you, yeah, William Bridges, Transitions, great piece of literature.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Janet. And then Rob, good to see you. Welcome.
Hey, guys. I am driving, but I'm hands-free. So I've got an iPad with cellular set up for all of my meetings and stuff like that. So we're safe. Sara, thank you for having this and having what an incredible human being. Now, I know Mike from, personally, and I can tell you guys that this is one of the most incredible human beings I've ever met. He is exactly what you think he is by listening to him speak. And Michael, it's really, really just powerful what you said. And it means a whole lot to me that we have this friendship. I also am a graduate, class 13, Booyah, and I'm a big supporter of the Honor Foundation. That's why through all of the cramps and different experiences that I went through, swam across the San Diego Bay for you guys just recently. So my question comes from a little bit of I've got a little bit of a background with the Honor Foundation, and I'm kind of taking a look at like a 10,000 foot view. Michael, what are, if there are any, what are the changes that you see coming? Is the Honor Foundation going to evolve at all? Is there anything new being included? I'm just really excited for the future there. Thank you.
Rob, thank you very much for your kind words, and I love you, brother. So just thank you for that. So what THF is an evolving modern business, and we're always analyzing what's happening in the job market, what's happening with our customers, right? Our fellows, though, who are coming out of special operations. What are the unique needs? How do they change? And how we are addressing those from both sides, to include what is the best in practice currently in the field that we work in terms of transition and all of that. So the most direct way we're doing that currently is we're continuing to scale. We're not serving everyone coming out of special operations yet, but we are growing responsibly, because you can't just build a great team overnight. A soft truth is you can't create special operations overnight. And so we believe that. And so we're very diligently, but and scaling at a steady rate, to include having 2 campuses potentially in virtual, just so we can get an even broader reach next year. And in addition to really starting to have conversations with congressional staffers at the state and national level, and having conversations with bigger change makers to put out the information. And as if that weren't quite enough by such a small staff, we are trying to have a deep and meaningful influence on the greater 200,000 veterans who get out every year. And we are making, we've taken our 10 years of existence. We're 10 years old next year. We're taking our decade of experience at doing this and thinking critically and trying to grow responsibly. Essentially a phase one, like I described it. Who are you? Because we're not seeing that addressed for the 200,000 who are in transition. And how do we make that available to them? And so we are hoping that Vector Accelerator is our answer that we can launch in the, maybe not January 1 of next year, but first quarter of next year.
Excellent. Thank you. Thanks for
Thank you. Love you too, brother.
That's great. Thank you. That's exciting. That's
Mhm.
really exciting.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Rich.
Michael, first of all, I'd like to thank you for your years of service. And if you ever get down the Virginia way, I'm a docent at the National Museum of the Marine Corps since 2017.
Oh, wow. Thank you,
meet you
sir.
down
Yeah.
there. But
Wow.
anyway, you brought up some good points. I know after my 30-year career, and it was time to leave. What are you going to do? I don't know. And then I'm thinking, I said, oh my God, I got a family to raise. I'm only going to get one check a month instead of two a month, and how's this going to work? And I'll tell you, and then having all that time on my hands really brought the demons that I had to the surface. And it was like, so once again, I want to thank you for your service and the work that you're doing in the foundation. God bless you.
Thank you very much, Rich. I only got to listen to part of your story yesterday, but man, it's powerful. So thank you for sharing your story as well. I will finish your episode.
Thanks, Rich. And then Michael.
I think Jim had his hand up first.
Jim,
Oh.
I'm sorry. I think there was a transition and it got me off course here. I apologize. All you, Jim.
Okay. I just want, I had a number of things that kind of cropped up with what some of the other people said. Rich just mentioned that whole, like, you end your career and then there's that sort of aha moment, like, oh, what am I going to do now? That type of thing. And I had that phase in my life in 2021 when I made the decision to end my career. Kind of navigated through some of that, but one of my, and it ties into this whole conversation about the why and what's your why and such. I had a retired Navy SEAL officer who I'm friends with, say to me one morning after I'd retired a few months, he said, "What's your purpose?" Because he said, you have to have a purpose to get out of bed every day. And you really have to establish that. And I was pretty tied into that already. But so I work with a leadership development organization, and we do the Simon Sinek thing with people, about establishing their why or their purpose. But then we try to take them to the next step with that and this is difficult for some people to get their head around it, like, because they're in the midst of their career. But we say, what do you want your legacy to be? And how do you take your purpose and tie that to what you want your legacy to be? And because you're in your career, we don't expect you to, because everybody thinks of their legacy as like the end, like what did I leave behind? But we ask them to start working incrementally towards that, right? So we'll try to get a grasp on what mark you want to leave, and then how do you incrementally work towards that based off your purpose and that kind of thing. So I just offer that up as maybe a segue or a second step for your folks, is like, it's one thing to have your purpose, but then like, where are you going to take it?
Certainly. Yeah, no, I really appreciate that's a really powerful set of concepts, especially when used in conjunction with one another. And you don't necessarily have to have your why totally nailed down, and you can start to really ask the bigger question once you've got a working why, if you will. And I think that if you haven't heard of Dr. John Vervaeke, he's a professor of psychology at the University of Toronto. He does a 50 episode YouTube series and it's entitled Awakening from the Meaning Crisis. And it is a heck of an investment. It goes deep into cognitive science, touches through philosophies, religions, and all of it. And one of my key and big takeaways, been highly influential in my thinking lately, is just what you asked. He terms it a little bit differently, but I hear the parallel instantly. It's, what do you care about that's going to exist longer than you? And what are you doing about it right now? And that is and essentially you've said the same thing, but using different words, but it gets to one end. It gives a person meaning in life, because it goes way beyond just our 100-year, here we are. Yeah.
The other exercise I've done personally and with other people kind of along that whole like legacy thing is the development of your, and it's a little bit morbid, but it's the development of your obituary.
Absolutely.
Right. And then,
yes.
And then what is it that you want people to say on that day? And what are you doing to make that happen?
Absolutely. Right? Yes.
Living the life that takes it to that point. So that's actually what the outcome is.
Part of the modern world, and being comfortable is how we don't face death as upfront in our daily lives as we used to not that long ago. So I absolutely agree with that. Yeah.
That's interesting. I just had a friend, a coach, and works a lot in corporate America. You probably actually know her, Halty, but she was sharing with me how powerful it was, this exercise of writing your obituary. And she even asked me again, she goes, Sarah, have you done it? I thought, oh yeah, I need to do that. She was so impacted by that. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Jim.
Yeah, I feel like I'm on the hook now. I'm writing it down. I owe, that's my due out.
We'll have to check on each other.
Yeah. Hold each other accountable. Don't do it alone.
Yeah. Yep. Sounds good. All right. Michael, comment, question?
Yeah, no, I guess now I'm on the hook. I know Janet tried to get me to write my obituary and I didn't do that. So now y'all are putting pressure on me to do that as well. So
oh, Janet, that's right. Yes.
I'll have to add that to the list of things to do. I'm sure Janet has no problem holding me accountable for that one.
Not at all.
But yeah, I just want to say I love the fact that y'all address that, that why. And there's a lot of organizations out there, that don't do that. And it's important, because that's something I hear all the time is, well, I lost my purpose. I lost my identity. And it took me a long time to realize I never lost my identity. I didn't know who I was outside of, being a Marine. And it's not a loss of purpose. It's when you realize the difference between a purpose and a mission. That's what I try to teach guys on my retreats, is there's a difference between a mission and a purpose. Your missions, which is the military, feed your purpose, but you just don't know, a lot of us just haven't sat down and figured out what that purpose is, and realizing that, the military was just like, I use a tree analogy. It was just a branch off of that tree of your purpose. And so finding your next mission after the military. So I love that aspect. I would curious and learn more about what you guys do to help guys figure out their purpose and their next mission, and how you guys work with them to find their identity.
Yeah. So it's, we don't say it out loud, like it's not really in the literature, but it's really what we're doing underneath the entire time is identity, community, you know, how are you making sense of the world? Because if you don't have identity and community, you can't make sense of the world. It really starts to come apart. What's your purpose? And then you can extrapolate from all of that, right? Meaning in life. And so some of the other things we didn't talk about is over the 3 months, we have amazing coaches like Sara, Correll, who give up 1 hour a week to make sure that Halty is having a different transition than Rob Sweetman. What are the, you know, and so Sarah's going to be paired with me and she can help me with my individual needs. And then like Brenda would be a coach coaching Rob, who's helping him with his individual needs. And it really helps, you know, that individual track all the way through. And then Rob and I get to share with, hey, this is what I'm going through, brother, me too. And it just creates a positive feedback loop, both individually, and you grow your, you know, concentric circles of support. And while doing that, so dialogos, the idea that you and I in conversation can get further on an idea or a broad concept than we can individually not talking about it, not having the vulnerable conversation. So we create opportunities for dialogos so that people can really start to expand and get further than they could. And they start to extrapolate some of those things intuitively. And then we add the curriculum to kind of continue to push them into discomfortable things that they've got to grapple with.
Thank you. So I don't have a name. Is it Max or Pro Max? iPhone 14 Pro Max. I'll call you that.
Hey, sorry about that. I don't know how to change it. And I don't know how you folks are putting up all these background images and pictures of yourselves. I'm not that squared away, but my name is Vince. I'm a retired Navy diver. Like Jim, I decided in 2021 that I was going to switch gears and hop out, and I'm glad I did. But at the same token, like Rich said, you know, I've been definitely fighting some demons and definitely struggling with the one paycheck a month. So my dream was to get into law enforcement, and I put myself through a police academy when I got out, got my EMT cert and all but knocked out my bachelor's degree. And anyways, long story short, that just doesn't seem to be panning out for whatever reason. Right. So, you know, I decided I'm going to apply to the Honor Foundation. I'm working on that right now. I've got one left from my CMC, Mark Britton, and then I'm working on another one from maybe my buddy Todd Neal or Seth Cummings, and those are, you know, coming soon. So I'm trying to get into the spring class. I think it could do me some good. I've literally dropped probably 45 applications to various different things. And as you guys know, each one needs its own resume, and each one needs its own cover letter. And then each one has its own paperwork that goes along with that, and interviews, and and I just keep getting kicked in the damn teeth every single time I get, you know, Lockheed Martin doesn't want me for this, or, you know, Prevalence doesn't want me for that, or, you know, so I'm really hoping that, you know, the program is going to help me with those things. You know, I'm open-minded. You know, I'm all about the growth mindset. I'm optimistic, and yeah, so looking forward to it.
And I'm going to text and beat you up over text until I see it. And we're going to make sure you get in the spring, because I absolutely, it's heartbreaking to hear that. And there's too many guys doing it. So whatever we can do to help, let's figure that out.
Appreciate it, man. I'm a single dad. I got 2 kids. I lost my wife in 2014, and don't ask me how I struggled through 7 years in special operations, but I did it. And now I'm struggling through this. So like I said, looking forward to it. Work on my package now. I'll get that to you guys. And thanks, Sara, for setting this up. And thanks, Rich and Jim, for what you guys had to say as well. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Vince, we're with you. And I'm so thrilled that, you know, Michael is here to help you with the process. And you know what? We can hop on a call anytime.
Yes.
Let me know if you want to talk through anything too with me or, you know, others here. Yeah, we are here for you.
Appreciate you. I got into Wim Hof. That definitely helps me. Ice baths help me. I invested in a Renew ice tank. I even invested in a sauna, but I just haven't, you know, I don't have the fundage to get the electrical all worked out, but, you know, I'm working on it. I just need some help. So thanks, you guys.
Yeah. I'm glad you came on.
Glad you're here, Vince.
Yeah. Awesome. Paul, we'll wrap up with you, Paul. Actually, we have a little more time. Yeah, if anybody else has a comment or question.
Well, let me start by saying that at my age, I have written a lot of obituaries. And I'm not proud of that. It's just a circumstance of time. But one of the things that has helped me tremendously is to have an accountability partner. And in this case, that's my wife. And let me tell you, there's nothing that will knock your socks off faster than your wife making you accountable for something.
True statement, sir.
And as to Vince's comment and the people searching for employment, I always, without fail, ask, what are you passionate about? I don't care what it is, just tell me what you're passionate about. And the reason for that is the people that do work that they're passionate about, number one, it's not work. They enjoy it. And number two, they tend to be in the top 1% of the people doing that work. And I don't care if it's somebody sweeping the floors or somebody washing the dishes or somebody who's a waiter, or, you know, it doesn't matter. What matters is, are you passionate about it? And if you are passionate about it, go find it. Figure out a way to monetize it. And I find that to be tremendously helpful. And that comes from years of learning how not to do it.
Yes, sir. Thank you for sharing that. And those are two things that we hold as truths as well. At the Honor Foundation, we put all of the fellows into triads. So they're in a 3-person group, and they're there to hold each other accountable for the homework, for going through the vulnerability, for, you know, everything going throughout the cohort. So then they have a really close, tight network. The coaches do that a ton. I bet Sarah's probably asked a fellow or two, like, where's this? Where's that? Why isn't it done? And so, yes, we believe in accountability in a big way as well. And in terms of passion, Paul, I couldn't agree more. The only thing I would add to that, I would say yes, and we make sure they're actually good at that passion and that it is achievable in a monetary sense. Because I have known a gentleman who wanted to be a woodworker, but didn't, although passionate, didn't have a great talent for it. So we had to redirect that passion into something new. But both of those absolutely resonate with us.
Thank you.
Good point. Rich.
I forgot to mention that over here on this coast in Virginia, we have the Boulder Crest Foundation.
Mm-hmm.
And I sometimes, I'm affiliated with them. I go up there and help out as much as I can. And they recently opened one out in Arizona also.
Mm-hmm.
And they also associated with the Sheepdog Impact Association. In fact, there's a major, sergeant major that formed that group. Yeah,
Yeah, really, I'm pretty sure we're community partners, so it's kind of an official term, if not unofficial, at least with Boulder Crest. Very familiar. We do have a campus there in Virginia Beach with you. Yeah, that was our second campus we ever opened. Yep.
Thanks, Rich. Gary.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment, kind of personal story. This year during Memorial Day, my son, my oldest son, invited me over for something special. As I told him, I said I felt like I was an interloper on sacred ground, really, because I've never been deployed. I've never done those things, and he's been through 4 deployments now with every version of a special operator. When I got there, he had this like incredible bottle of high-end whiskey, And I looked at him. I know that he doesn't drink that. And I was like, what's this for? And he said, you don't, I didn't realize you liked this. He goes, oh, I don't like it. He said, this was Rod's favorite drink. Well, Rod was the last ranger that he had lost over in Afghanistan. And I knew Rod's story, and we celebrate his life at our he's at our missing man table every Thanksgiving. And so what was interesting about that was that, as he did that, my son raised his glass, and just no list in front of him, just cited probably about 12 or 13 names of folks that he had lost over there across all services and everything. And then right after that, we got on the phone with an Army special operator who was at the Battle of Fallujah and survived that. And that was just quite compelling. As I listened to it, they were all going to get together the next day up in upstate New York to go, from their various tours, come together and celebrate the lives of those who were no longer there. And I think what was really just unforgettable to me was just to see, and I don't make light of the phrase, thank you for your service, because that's a genuine thing. But when I listen to this, I just think about, no, it's the sacrifice, and it's the sacrifice that are made not only by the ultimate sacrifice, but the families that were left behind, that no longer had that. My son, he just had his first child, and one of the things he said, I keep doing what I'm doing. You talk about somebody finding their why. He said, I keep doing what I'm doing. I don't want to step into being an executive within the intelligence world. He said, because I want to continue to be deployed, because he's not in a braggart way. He's just like, I'm the best at what I do, and they deserve to have the best out there. And I got to come home to see my son, and people like Rod did not. And he said, and not getting into the politics or anything, he said, it's real simple for me. He said, my job is to take out as many bad guys as I can, and to bring back as many of the good guys back to their families. And so that to me was kind of like, when I listen to that, it's sort of like, it's sort of my why too, is why I want to help with the Honor Foundation, things like that, because I know that there's these folks have made a huge sacrifice for us, and this is the least that we can do. So that's my passion, if you will, and that's my why. So
Thank you, Gary.
Yeah, thank you. I think there's many of us that share your passion, Gary. And we feel the same way. We want to be there for our protectors because they have protected us. And really, it's such an honor to have you on, Halty. I really appreciate you taking the time to share your story, letting us get to know you better, and to have a even greater understanding of the Honor Foundation and the amazing mission that you are on, and how many people are going to be helped so deeply. I just like Gary says, that just the amount of experiences our protectors have, and then going right into this transition, to get your voice out there will just attract more people who want to support. So again, I thank you. And I want to leave you with this one question. What would you like us to walk away with from this talk?
Man, and so pre-show, you asked me that question, and I thought I had an answer. And as I've been listening to all your stories, it started to adapt a little bit. The one thing that keeps coming through, look how much we all shared with each other. We're virtually strangers, right? But the ability for all of us to share and just have a vulnerable, honest conversation and remain curious, I think, is the most important thing that we can do with each other and with those weirdo strangers we don't know yet. They're not strangers. They're just friends we haven't made acquaintance with yet. So don't hesitate to be vulnerable. Don't hesitate to be curious about somebody else, because you just never know the gold that you're missing when you don't have a conversation with somebody new.
That's right. Thank you so much. That definitely encourages connection, doesn't it? And we feel in that, and we thrive in that. So I am with you again. Thank you so much. And thank you all for being here and being part of this conversation.
Yes.
Yeah. Much love to you all. Thank you.